I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried. Will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Hi, everyone. Today on Mental Health News Radio, we're shining a light on Unspoken Grief, a poignant podcast born from the nonprofit Impacted Survivors of Murder-Suicide, hosted by three courageous survivors, Michael Vinton, Tina Chevalier, and Kristina Faulkner. This series brings forth stories often trapped in silence, the raw, complex journeys of those who've lost loved ones to murder-suicide. Each episode is led by these three with personal and professional experience who navigate grief's deep, layered challenges. They created Unspoken Grief and Impacted Survivors as a lifeline for others, offering grief courses, peer support, comfort calls, and a space where no one has to grieve alone. It's not just about grief. It's about reclaiming connection, finding understanding, and building resilience, often in the shadows. So wherever you are in your healing journey, let this be an invitation to join them and discover that even the most silent struggles can lead to shared strength. Hi, everyone. Kristin here. We're on Mental Health News Radio, and our guests are here. Michael, Kristina, and Tina, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
And thanks for adding your show to our network lineup. It's so pivotal and so important, and I'm just excited to be able to share what you're doing, which is going to help so many people, as you already know.
Thank you. Thank you for opening up to us and for creating a network and giving space. So thank you.
Absolutely. I want to start, I'll just go down the line of where I see you on my Zoom screen. I want to start with just asking each of you what brought you to doing this podcast and the organization that you created. So Michael, I'll start with you.
Sure, yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Vinton, and with my two other co-founders, we created Impacted Survivors of Murder-Suicide. What brought me to this line of work is I am also a loss survivor, and I lost my brother in a murder-suicide about 5 years ago. And interestingly enough, when you're going through a situation like this and you're seeing the gaps in resources and help that's out there, it becomes a red flag. And maybe at the beginning, speaking for myself, it's noticeable, but you just keep still looking. It's kind of like, I don't know, I've got two small children, so I just keep thinking of finding Nemo and Dory, Ellen DeGeneres' characters, like just keep swimming, just keep swimming. So that's what you do. You just keep swimming. And then I myself and other people felt in the need to create some advocacy around this because there just needed to be so much more support out there. And when I found these two lucky ladies, we decided to create Impacted Survivors, and it has been one of the best decisions of my life.
Wonderful. Kristina, how about you?
Um, I mean, Michael pretty much summed up a lot of um, my same sentiments. I think for me, um, I have I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor, and so I think for me, being a survivor and then also being a therapist was very interesting. Because I do this for a living, and I've heard some pretty horrific things in my life and in my career, and it's interesting to be on the other end and have kind of the worst story. so
Mm.
um so for me, and what I noticed too was when I wanted to get my own um help in this field, I found that a lot of therapists just never seen this before. I know I've never seen it before. And I know too, for trainings, they don't exist to help people like us. So I guess I came at it from a point of, from the mental health perspective of, there needs to be more resources. And there needs to, and on the other spectrum for therapists, there needs to be resources for them because you feel very helpless to help a survivor go through something like this. You know, I know a lot of therapists get grief certifications, and they might get work in suicide prevention. This is a whole different ball game. So I feel like we need to kind of fill that gap. So yeah, that's, and also too, I would say the media was really horrible in my situation, and unfortunately a lot of situations once we got together. So I definitely wanted to do something, some sort of advocacy to see if we can hold the media a little bit more accountable and maybe change some things so survivors don't have to get re-traumatized in the process.
Absolutely. Tina, how about you?
For me, I lost my brother in 2021. And when it happened, I immediately turned to the internet looking for help, answers, anything. And there's really nothing. Um, you know, for me, I was lucky to find a few fellow survivors and just knew that the need was there. Um, it was really speaking with other survivors was the only thing that got me through. I didn't go to a therapist. I just spoke with others with a lived experience, and that's really what did it for me. And knowing that there weren't any groups specific to this out there, it was really important to create it. And with the podcast, I think it's just a different way to reach out to survivors because not everybody wants to come to a support meeting. They're not ready, or they just don't care to do that. So we're hoping by having the podcast, we can reach them on that level and support them from afar with love.
It's so fantastic too that you understand that because there's so many people like I used to be. I will go to every group therapy session. I love it. I was doing peer support in high school about child abuse. What was I doing? Which I'm so glad that I did, but I also didn't recognize that I'm on neurodivergent. And so my system needs peace and calm because I get dysregulated very quickly. And yet I lived a very dysregulated life. So now group therapy is I got to be, I make a choice before I go, like a lot of people do, and it's not the only way. Like you said, people can listen to the show, they can have it just in their earbud. I mean, I am sure that there are people that listen to your show before they go to sleep because they want to stop ruminating, and they can just get this calm from the three of you to fall asleep to and get some peace. So I know I've heard that from listeners of my show. So bravo to all of you for knowing that and for doing this.
Mm. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's definitely so nice to hear. I just heard from another survivor that we first connected with in January when our podcast wasn't quite ready yet, and she had heard from another survivor in her same area about our podcast and didn't know about it yet. And so it was just so cool to hear in that realm of the community that people are spreading it that way. And that is the hope. That is the hope.
Absolutely. In terms of creating the nonprofit, I mean, you all three live in different, completely different towns, different states, or are you all in the same area?
West
Gotcha.
Coast and East Coast.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
covering a swath of areas, which is fantastic. And of course, putting it out on a podcast, it can be listened to everywhere. I'm always surprised someone in Uruguay is listening.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. I love that.
So that, this kind of thing is universal, and that's where you find the people that need it too. But even, I've listened to three of the shows and I have not had this exact experience, but grief is universal.
Hmm. That it
That it
is.
is. Hmm.
It is indeed. Yeah. And it's interesting just the fact that we're all in different locations and we met this way. We met online in this type of support group for this type of loss because it's so specific and requires specificity in your process. And matter of fact, the three of us hadn't met in person until just this year in April when we spoke at a conference. And I warned them. I said, "Listen, I'm far better looking in real life, so just hold your husbands, ladies." I mean, wait, yeah,
Isn't that nuts though, when you have such this deep, intense um, relationship that becomes your family. You guys are obviously family. And then you meet in person. Talk to me, Tina, talk to me about that when you met the first time and you get that first hug and you're like, I'm touching the real person. What was that like?
Oh my gosh. Are there even words for the joy? Um, Kristina and me are about the same height, and we were just like the perfect, it was, oh my God, what a hug. Like she's just, it was just like hugging somebody I've known my whole life and loved my whole life. Um, Michael's like 10 feet tall, so he was a little more difficult to navigate, but just the same. They truly are my family, and it was such a joy. And it was just like we were like at summer camp, like it was great. We had such a blast. We laughed so much. We had so many fun little takeaways and little inside jokes now that we can talk about. It was really, really amazing.
How about you, Kristina?
I was the same. I mean, meeting them in such a it's one of those bittersweet things where it's like, if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have met them,
Right.
but I'm so grateful that I met them, so because when you find your people, that in this kind of situation, you have to get it to understand, and they get it, I have a very supportive family, but these two are my go-to, because nobody gets it like they do.
Absolutely. How about you, Michael, with your towering stature when you
oh
met?
my gosh. I didn't warn them about that. But it was interesting because I met Christina at the airport because our flights came in pretty close to one another. And so it like Tina said, it was like camp, it was like we were pen pals for so long and now we're at camp and Christina and I are taking the bus together. And then just like Kismet, I guess is the right word, as Christina and I are walking into the hotel, Tina had just come down from the elevator and it was just like if it was a movie it would be like we look left and Tina like looks right and it's like and just it was perfect. It was like of course, we're aligned, our energies, we're just calling each other. And the thing I love the most is we spent a lot of time getting to know each other in a different capacity
Mm,
because our work is in murder suicide and it's in grief. And when we're creating these presentations and we're sharing these stories of trauma or events that have happened to us, we connect. But on this trip, we got to be like, so what was your wedding like? Tell me about your three kids and like, where do you want to vacation next, Tina? And Christina, what does, the next 5 years or your retirement look like or whatever? It's just really cool to
Not
find.
that old.
Oh, no, yeah, no. I mean, Did I say retirement? Oh, can I say retirement? I was just, can we take that back?
You just outed me like
I'm the oldest.
Well, if I may say, Kristin, if you saw Kristina's house, you would be like, this is her retirement, her manor castle that she's got going on.
whatever.
I
Tina
just
and I've
want to
already,
know about that cool microphone that you've got that glows. I mean, what?
I know.
How do I not know about this? Come on.
Amazon.
That is so freaking cool.
she's
I
got all the
know.
cool stuff.
I hope it's not distracting.
No, I love it. Although, yeah, I could get into my ADHD and be like,
I was just thinking, everybody, it's like a throwback 80s. There.
all right, I'm going to switch gears just to a piece that I think is so important for our time now, which is the media piece. And you all talk about it with whatever comfort, don't say what you don't want to say. I know I've dealt with it myself with this network, getting blasted for having specific people on my shows, people that were in huge amounts of trauma, a lot of publicity, and they're being bullied by strangers and reporters and social media and all of that while they're still in the hospital getting treatment for things like the Boston Marathon bombing. So it's been interesting to ride through that. It's definitely done a lot of interesting things to my own regulation and dysregulation to be on the periphery of it and then in the front line with them with it. So I want you to talk about that impact because that adds a whole new layer onto trying to move through your grief.
I think we could do a whole show on just the media.
Yeah.
We have all had terrible experiences. And right now there's a case that just happened and it's huge news across the country. And I've been watching it really close and paying attention to the media, and some are getting it right, but most of them are not getting it right with the language. We're trying to reduce the stigma and humanize the people that we love. We always say they're more than their final act. And it's a constant battle of being, and Kristina can speak to this a lot. It's always domestic violence. It's always black and white. And the media they just keep it going. And social media is horrible. The keyboard warriors are the absolute worst because there are stories behind these headlines. There are people behind these headlines that are hurting. And there needs to be much more sensitivity and language. We have a piece of a presentation where a popular television show spoke really inappropriately about murder-suicide. And it was just unbelievable. But I'll let these guys speak because I could go on forever. I just know for myself, it was a really bad experience that I personally had.
Yeah, for me, they published the address of my loved ones that died. And so trying to sell the house was horrific. They continue to, like Tina said, get things wrong. They had wrong names, misspelled names, and then they would always focus on the details of the how they passed, without any kind of care in the world that there's family members that are going to read this, and if I'm hopefully blessed to have grandchildren someday, if they Google my loved ones' names, they're going to find that. And unfortunately, I just got burned again. I was trying to talk to a media reporter because they were again coming at it with pretty much all murder suicides or domestic violence, and one of our missions of the nonprofit is to say, no, there's other reasons why this happened. Domestic violence is unfortunately one of them, but there's also mercy, there's also justice, there's different reasons, and what we find is that there's never going to be a one size fits all. There is never going to be a complete picture because everyone's situation is different. But we also don't want the first responders and police departments and coroners to always check that box of domestic violence without talking to the family members. What we're asking for is a little bit more in-depth conversation, and get your facts before you just label that, because now all of a sudden the media gets the police report and they're writing a whole different narrative that what actually just happened. And so I was trying to talk to a reporter and trying to get my story out there. And again, I got burned because she took my story and then she put it with some sort of doctor, researcher. To be honest with you, I don't even remember because I was so upset. And she combined it, and she basically was making me look like survivors are pretty much delusional. They're going to believe whatever they want to believe. At the end of the day, this is a murder suicide. It's horrific. It's no matter, there's no justification for why someone would do this. And it doesn't matter what the reasons are. And family members are pretty much, just believing whatever they want to believe to grieve. And so it just made me look like I was, again, delusional. And so it was just, again, heartbreaking. And I felt, again, 2 years later, re-traumatized. And it just makes me feel like I want to crawl under a rock, because people just don't understand. So.
Absolutely. Michael, how about you?
Well, I feel like there's such a fine line with the news and media to report things that happen, but then they always seem to go 10 steps too far. And it makes me wonder, like, that's why this country has such a interest in crime shows and shows like Snapped and 48 Hours. I mean, these are things that I used to watch. We almost get excited like it's a storyline. It's one thing if it's a fictional television show. It's another thing if it's somebody's life. So, for example, there was a newspaper in the state of Arizona that released, must have been an online publication, excuse me, that released an article and about somebody's murder suicide that took place in 2023, and they also had an audio clip of the 911 call that was made by their family members. And I listened to it, and it was just, first of all, it provided nothing but somebody's worst day ever of their entire life, of their family falling apart. Nobody wants to listen to that. And I contacted the paper and I was like, where's the line here? If these people signed up for a television show and were like, sure, I want to be interviewed and share my story, fine. That's your right. But you're exploiting people for the sensationalistic aspect, and that is wrong. That's wrong. I probably feel this strongly because, like the rest of my partners here, I had a situation with the media where they released a note. My brother had written a note that we had not seen prior to them releasing it, and it was already released online. And um, I read it in real time, like everybody else read it. And it was horrible, it was horrible. And so it makes me very defensive for people when there's things like that that are released that are just ridiculous. There's not enough news in this world. You can't find anything else to talk about,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. Was your experiences dealing with the media, was that a reason or one of the many reasons why you wanted to have a podcast so that your voices would be telling your stories and other people's stories? Was that one of the reasons? Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think the best way to combat that kind of stuff is to shine our voices brighter and bigger in a way that shifts the narrative and also creates a balance. I understand and respect that they have a job to do, but now we do too.
Exactly. I know. I love there's something, even if, your show, I'm not talking about your show, but any show has 5 listeners. It's not even so much about how many people are going to listen to you telling exactly what happened that's outside of whatever narrative other people have projected onto it. So just the act of saying it and publishing it and putting it out there, it gives you back some agency, which is phenomenal. I call my mic the truth stick. I mean, it's just very, very helpful. Kristina, what do you say about that with, your mental health background about giving people that agency or them giving it to themselves like you three have done?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's just part of the healing process to vent and talk about it. You can't grieve in a vacuum. This is such a situation where it's like you have to do the work, and there's just so many stages, and I actually don't really think the typical grief model works for us. I actually created a different grief model for murder suicide, and a lot of that has to do with being able to process, and it's even better if you can process with your people, with people that get it, and don't, and because to be honest with you, even doing this podcast, I mean, I'm not the type to put myself out there. I don't like being this vulnerable. Sometimes I question if I'm actually doing. I lost my parents, and so sometimes I wonder, because I grew up with the motto of like, we don't talk about nothing. Everything that happens stays under our roof. I heard that my whole life, and sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, they probably wouldn't want me talking about all this stuff, but I feel like I need to though. I need to make sure as their daughter that I'm telling the story. I'm talking about the facts, not just the emotions, the facts too. And even as a therapist, that's what I always tell my clients is that you have to live your life in this wise mind, which is emotions and facts. That's the only way we're ever going to continue our healing process.
Absolutely. I want to find out. I know I want listeners, please go listen to this podcast. We will have links and everything in the description. We have links and everything in the description when this goes live. But I want to talk about what your organization does, what kinds of therapeutic and different kinds of speeches that you guys go and give and where. Tell me a little bit about that part of it.
I'll go. So, um, what we kind of focus on is support, education, and awareness. The support aspect is we have a peer support group, and it's just a really welcoming, safe space. We don't like to rehash details. We don't like to re-traumatize anybody. We come in, we'll do a grounding. We do different exercises, journal prompts, the feelings wheel, things that will lead to bigger conversations. And we like to end it with something positive. Tears are welcome, laughter is welcome, everything is welcome. It's very important for me to be a part of those meetings. It always feels really good to be in a space with people that get it, and we can share and we can lift each other up. We have the education piece. Kristina has created 2 grief courses, which are phenomenal. And we try to just teach people more about, myth versus truth. And like with the awareness advocacy, we have the podcast. We speak at conferences. We've done one in person, but we do virtual. We're about to do another one. We were invited to that we did last year. Webinars. What else am I missing, guys?
Yeah, perfect. And just to expand on that in depth, Skosh, is the conferences, like Tina was saying about the education aspect, because it's mostly focused on mental health therapy professionals, excuse me, getting their continuing education credit. So we have an opportunity to bring the information and the data that we've collected and that we're still gathering and learning more information and share it with those. Because circling back to like what Kristina said at the beginning, I also tried to find a therapist that was skilled or versed in murder suicide loss, and I had somebody tell me like, you're never going to find that, and I was like, oh God, really? Turns out they were right, so we're going to make that our mission now, um, and raising the awareness, and these grief courses that Kristina created really dive in deep with the specificity, because most murder suicides have that duality of partners dying at the same time, parents, siblings, sometimes children. And so she's really taken that next step into how to mourn these things independently, and not to compartmentalize, but to embrace it. And there's safety precautions. And I mean, she's really done beautiful work with that. Really beautiful work.
I want to ask the three of you, um, we're all evolving. I don't like hierarchy, and that's why I love the title that you use on your email, Michael. Tell
Thank you.
everybody what it is.
Sure. It says core member of a murder suicide loss survivor.
I love that. No hierarchy. Chef's kiss. I think I emailed you and said that I wanted to borrow it from you, and I will. But I wanted to find out, we all grow from these kinds of experiences, these huge pivotal experiences in our lives, and what we create out of that. So what does it feel like, as you're living your daily lives now, and grief comes out of nowhere, you have a memory, something like you just talked about, Kristina, a new article, comes out, and I want to hear from you guys about how you kind of look at yourself and who you were as a human being before all of this and how you are now, and what happens when you see that and you go, holy Mike, wow, I am so completely different. So Michael, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, by the way. Oh my gosh, that's a really great question. Before this, I just would view my life as, I, looking back on it, very selfish. I was like focused on my career, which I should be, focused on expanding my family. I didn't really have another care in the world except for those things. Just that was my life. That was the only thing that I knew. And then this happened, and I never felt grief like this before. I've never felt trauma like this before. Excuse me. And I can look back even at like my first or second year and see the changes in my personality. And I feel like, because I've changed a lot. Um, Everything was all at once for me, specifically. My brother passed away not too much longer. I became the same age he did when he passed. And then the next year after that, I crossed over older than he ever got to be. And he's my older brother. That really effed me up.
Yeah.
Beep, that just nothing, that's not supposed to happen. It just, so those first years were just confusing. It was almost like that station on TV back in the day when it would go, and
Right.
be all the snow. Like that's what I feel about that. And now I'm gonna be at 5 years in a few days, and I'm still incredibly sad. I think I'm more sad now, because I miss him so much more. I mean, I missed him the second that he left, but now that we have gone this many days and this many years and these many hours without speaking, the pain is just still there. But I think now I'm able to channel that into this awesome foundation, into our podcast, and into our work that gives me such a greater purpose, that I have the family that I want, still working on that career here in Los Angeles. It may or may not come, but I have greater purpose now, and that makes me feel really good.
How about you, Kristina?
Um, this is a very good question, but it makes me honestly very sad. It's my life before I lost my parents. Honestly, I would have said my life was perfect. I know there's no perfect life, but it was really good from what I thought. And so, um, I the last 2 years have been really difficult because I really thought that who I was as a person was gone. And I talked about this on one of our podcasts that I remember my husband saying to me, we just want you back. We just want you back. And I was like, she's gone. Like get used to it. Like I just felt like such a shell of a person. I was just surviving as best as I could for my kids and for my husband and for my clients. But at the end of the day, I was just like, man, this is my life now for the rest of my life. And it's only probably the last couple months that I can say that I'm not my old self. I just realized that I've never left. And I started I started not thinking about the future as much because, I think what I've learned after losing them that tomorrow is never promised. Um, and my father was in such a desperate and hopeless situation for him to do the things he did. He didn't snap. He wasn't mentally ill. He was desperate. And I don't think anyone can judge unless you have been to that point of desperation and hopelessness that my father was in. And it just makes me feel like I never want to obviously get there. So now I live my life just asking for a happy day, not a happy life, just a happy day. And I choose. I have to make choices every day for that. And so that means as soon as I get out of bed, I am very intentional and I pray and I work on my faith and I think about my children and my husband and my clients and me and my dogs and I make choices throughout the day and they're very mindful choices and I just want to bring in those emotions that are going to make me feel better about my life because now for the rest of my life it will always be bittersweet and I've accepted that and I don't have to suffer at the same time. So making these choices and bringing these other emotions in is going to allow me to have not just survive, but I can still thrive. And I do that for my parents in honor of them and with them.
I always feel like it's walking through wet concrete grief is, and it just gets stickier and stickier the longer you're walking through it, harder to go, but you do keep walking through it.
You crawl if you have to.
Exactly. I will get there. Yeah, exactly. Tina, how about you?
Those are both beautiful, you guys. Holy smokes. For me, I guess what I feel is I took a lot for granted. I took for granted my older brother was always going to be here. My older brother, he took care of me and my mom our whole lives. We grew up, it was just the three of us, me, my mom, and my brother, single mom. She eventually went on to marry when we were in high school. But he was always there and it was like, oh, I don't have to call him. I'll talk to him later. And this happened, shortly after Christmas, and we hadn't gotten together this Christmas in particular. And it was, I think, the first Christmas that we didn't see each other. They're like, okay, well, we'll find the time, and he had gotten sick. So it was really difficult because every single year since we were infants, my mother takes a picture of me and my brother in front of the Christmas tree. It's this tradition that I have I'm so glad that she has done it because we have, from 1972, all the way up. And it's there. What a blessing to have those. Thank you, Mom. But I take it for granted. And I'm really sad about that. And I'm really sad that, you're always sad. You don't know the last time you see him is the last time you're going to see him. What I found about myself is I've learned to be more mindful of people's feelings. I've done a lot of reading and research, and I feel like I can pick up on things a little bit better now. And I try to make sure that if I notice something, I say something. It's really wanted me, I really feel kind of drawn to changing careers at this point in my life, which it's pretty scary. But I feel like I have definitely grown and changed. And I notice that grief is much more griefy now. We just lost my stepdad, and I had to go back to my hometown and everything was in the same funeral home my brother was in. And like, there was just all these little things. When I go back to my hometown, it's just all the things pop up. Um, but I find ways to counteract it. And, I think about funny things he would say. He's always there because he never called me by my name. He called me dude. So he's always, dude, come on, So it's just, I always have him there, like, you know, on my shoulder. And whenever I kind of start to get sad or something, I'll say hello to my grief. And we'll chat, but he'll dude me and reel me back in and we'll go on.
That's such a brother thing.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, totally. Okay. I want to ask you guys, as we kind of close this up, talk to me about the people that you've met outside of your three in expanding this from the listeners to the people that are doing your programs. How incredible. I know we touched on this a little, but I feel like we need to expand on it a bit so that my listeners understand just how vital that piece is when you find the others. So, Michael, can you speak to that?
Sure, yeah, it's an incredible feeling. We had one in particular person that reached out. I was so shocked because hers had happened in the 90s, but there was something that happened and it was like a global situation that re-traumatized her back to her murder suicide that happened in the 90s. And she reached out. I think somebody from church told her about it in Florida. Still don't know who the person was in Florida that recommended us, but whoever they are, we thank them 100%. And this young lady that reached out was just wanted somebody to talk to. Was like, I have been living with this for what 30 some years at this point. Every now and then it peeks its head, but this major event happened and it made me think about my trauma, and it trickled down. It wasn't even a murder suicide, the event, I don't think. And it made me realize how, like, I just keep thinking about like a drop of water falling into a bigger part of water and the ripple effect that just goes out. And we invited her to support and the group, I mean, and I don't think she's ever really come because I think she just needed something at that moment, someone to familiarize with, someone to talk to. And in a way, because she was further out than myself and Tina or Kristina, whoever was on the call with me, it was like I was learning from her,
Yeah.
about her experience and what she's been able to go through at a time before internet and media coverage in this way. And I think about her very often, and obviously the door is always open to her whenever she wants to come back. But to me, it just speaks to how people are still suffering for so long until something is available for them to be like, oh, thank God, I'm over here waiting in the wings, and you're in the middle of the stage, and we can now reach each other. It's a great feeling.
I love that. Perfectly said. Christina, how about you?
Yeah, I'm always amazed of the strength of the human spirit. I always tell my clients because I work with a lot of teens and young adults, and I always tell them it's like you have to go through the pit sometimes because that's the times of growth. That's the times of resilience. You don't grow when things are just going great in your life. You grow when the shit hits the fan, and
Totally.
so you know we've all grown. We've all just, you have to tap in and look inward and you got to pull out. And I remember, a lot of that was the common thread I heard from my family over and over again. And people that, were familiar with the situation was, Kristina, you're so strong. Kristina, you're so strong. That was and I kept thinking, what are they freaking talking about?
Right.
And then I would get sensitive because then we'd be like, "Oh, thank God you have your husband, thank God you have your husband." And I'm like, "Well, all right, I am thankful too, but I got up, like
Exactly.
I'm the strong, you know what I mean? So don't take away my, what I did, to still be here." So, yeah. So all the survivors that we've met, that is just it's such a common thing to just see how they deal with this situation and just how strong they really are.
It's amazing when you hear other people's stories and you go, oh, wow, that's how you processed this then and how you're doing it today. It's such important data, like human data that you need. It feeds you. Tina, can you talk about this too?
I love when we know that we made a difference, when we get that thank you. And I can't believe that you guys are here. And after a call, if somebody was dealing with something in particular, we've sent them articles and resources without them expecting it. And it was like, oh my God, because sometimes they're in it and they don't have time to look for that on their own. So you know what? I'm always on my computer. So you know what? I'm going to find this one, boom, sent. And they are so appreciative. And it makes, oh my gosh, my heart is so happy. Like if I can help another, that's really all I ask for in this life. I wish it was a different way. I wish I had my brother. But this is what I do now. This is what I do. This is how I have to go forward in my grief. And it's just helping others. That's what I have to do.
She's great at it.
I don't wear hats, but if I wore one, I would tip it to all of you.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, please tell everyone where they can find. I know the podcast can be found on every single app, but talk about, where they can find more information about what you guys do.
Yes, absolutely. You can find us on our website at impactedsurvivors.org. And as you mentioned, Kristin, our podcast, Unspoken Grief, on all major platforms. And the social medias, we're on Instagram at Impacted Survivors. And you can find us also on Facebook at Impacted Survivors of Murder, Suicide, Loss. And we're very excited to share that we've just become an official 501c3. So, yeah.
Congratulations. That's a journey. I know.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank you, Kristina, Tina, Michael. Thanks so much. I'm so glad that you decided to join the network. This is amazing. And I bet you were surprised that we actually had a couple hosts that could more clearly
Yeah.
relate to what you're talking about. My
Yes,
network is for the shows that are like the little trains that could, or
I
the little
could.
engine that could
Mhm.
shows. That's what it's all about for me.
Yes.
So thank you
Yeah.
for making that even more solidified for me on what my journey is about with this network. So I appreciate all three of you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please check out their podcast. It's so amazing. I can't even tell you how amazing it is. And have some Kleenex. Not every show will you need it, but some of them you absolutely will. Thanks for tuning in.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristin Sananta Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me. Till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy.